With all the ideas in his head for places to hide, he tends to lean to laundry. Here's your spooky spot on the Royal Bobbles John Carpenter's Halloween Michael Myers with Sheets. Halloween is about to take shape with the Royal Bobbles Michael Myers with Sheets, taken from the scene from the '78 film where Laurie spots Myers by the hanging laundry outside. The Royal Bobble is made of resin and carefully hand-painted. This is exactly why I throw all my wet clothes in the dryer. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the Royal Bobbles Halloween 1978 Michael Myers with Sheets. First, I'd like to thank the folks over at Royal Bobbles that were kind enough to send over this spooky sample that we could have a look at. The shape is going to stand at about 8 inches in height, or Michael Myers is 20 centimeters tall. First time looking at a Michael Myers bobblehead? No, actually, Royal Bobbles were kind enough before to send over Michael Myers, this time with the shape standing behind a bush. Michael Myers, when it comes to hide and seeking, yes, he's good at seeking, but he's not so good at hiding. Clearly, in both the cases, whether it be a bush or whether it be a sheet, the shape doesn't do really all that great of a job of hiding. Another, of course, mascot of Halloween that we can also bring in, courtesy of the folks over at Royal Bobbles, is Sam from Trick or Treat. Now, as you saw at the beginning in the unboxing, careful consideration was made when it came to packing the shape away. Sure, yes, of course, he was inside his own body bag, probably not able to breathe at all, and he was also contained inside of a styrofoam. But in between the shape and the sheet, there was actually a secondary piece of styrofoam. And actually, the way they did this was carefully enough to protect the sheet from being damaged. Of course, this being resin, this would be the last thing you really would want to have damaged. If you are one that likes to have these things displayed all year round, then all the power to you. If you are one that, though, likes to only display these things during the Hallows season and would like to store this away, I would say no matter what, in both the cases A and B, hold on to things like this. Because when you're putting the shape back in a styrofoam container, you really want to make sure that this goes then back as well. And that basically just sandwiches in between like this. Just to, again, ensure, because there's a little bit of space right here, and there's just the right amount of space that a fracture pinpoint could actually crack this very, very easily, I would imagine. Is, as you can see, been carefully crafted, carefully painted as well. Bringing in back, though, the shape behind the bush. Michael Myers, I will say, though, I think I like the one behind the sheet just a little bit more. I would initially have told you, though, that if looking at the two, that the heads are exactly the same. Though I can't help but think now that the one that's behind the bush, his head is a little bit more narrow. It would have just made the most sense, I would imagine, that they would have used the exact same heads. And yet, though, looking at it, I think I actually like the one from the sheet a little bit more. It's wider. You can also see that maybe his chin isn't as long. And I think it's actually a better looking statue. Now, obviously, both of these are attached to the neck via the springs. The spring is also one thing that when getting this out of the packaging, I just bring in right now. He gave himself basically like a little restraining neck collar piece that goes just underneath this. All the things that I'm listing, though, like the styrofoam sheet, like, of course, this, all things you really want to hold on to, put back in the box. Because when, again, you guys decide to choose to put this guy back in the box, you want to really make sure like all those things are with it. The careful detailing to the attention to detail, though, is fantastic on this. Of course, the eyes are a little harder to make out. I'm just going to hold on to the head for right now so you guys can see a little better look at this. I like that you see the eyes, but you don't see them well enough unless you're really looking close like this. Far enough, though, away, it's really hard to kind of make out the peepers of Michael Myers. Of course, he does have himself the eyebrows there as well. The torn off sideburns. You won't be finding sideburns at all in this former Dawn Post mask. The hair is nicely been colored there as well. It's not a dark black either. It's kind of more of a dark chestnut brown. The face sculpt isn't even white either. It's kind of got a more of a lightish gray, but I think it works really well for the mold. Of course, when it comes to his coveralls, whether you decide that this is spruce green or you think it's blue or even think that it's gray, it's still nicely molded here. I mean, I think for the most part that when we have gotten Royal Bobbles, I'm just going to have the two standing side to side. First of all, I do want to say also, it looks like they are using perhaps the exact same body. Different heads, maybe, but it looks like they are using different bodies, or same bodies. The molding itself looks to be very similar. It looks like they're also using very similar blue, although this one here behind the bush looks like it's got a little bit more of a darker blue than the one that we're getting here with the sheet. Sad news, though. isn't so much sad necessarily. Nothing's broken necessarily on it, but I have this area right here, which I thought initially was styrofoam. I first blew it away, thinking that that would just be enough to get rid of it, and sure enough, it wasn't. Then I start to flake at it, and I think what it is maybe it's just a little bit of paint that came off the sheet, and yet there's nothing really on the sheet that would show that the paint has come off on it. So maybe when they were trying to get in there and they were painting us, a little bit of paint ended up on it. It's not necessarily that the resin is cracked at all. I think it's actually just a little bit of white paint. The coloring of the boots look good on me, although really, to be fair, like the boots themselves are probably the least colored thing that's actually on this Royal Bobble. The grass is nicely done there also as well. It's a lighter green also that they used versus the bush. The bush kind of went with more of a darker green. Apparently I guess they just tender their lawn a little bit better around Laurie's house. The grass seems a little healthier and a little greener. Of course, you got the post there on the side as well. It's a more smaller occupied space. I don't know what kind of bed sheet that this is going to be occupying. Maybe a small child, a dog, or a cat. I mean, that's a very small sheet. But you can see that how white it is. Somebody's been using Tide. There's no stains. Not yet, at least. If we're from the curse of Michael Myers, then, of course, that's going to just get spread with blood. But right now, it's a clean sheet. And it looks really good. I think, for the most part, like they've done a nice job of painting everything on this. Of course, there's also being a bobblehead. Already given away this already. It does move back and forth. Now, this being, of course, resin, you want to be careful of, just because with moving this up and down like this, you really wouldn't want like things like the paint on the neck to crack or even paint off or flake off. The head does move freely up and down. Because his neck is so small like this, and because there's so much cavity space inside the mask, it gives a lot of freedom for the head to move up and down. I don't know necessarily, I would say that one moves a little bit better than others. I really thought, like, when we first look at the Michael Myers with the bush, that his head moved really easily. I might feel like this one moves a little bit better, and I don't really know why, because, like, the neck and the body look to be exactly the same. I just feel, again, like the head sculpts are different from one another, and I think really between the two, I like the one we get with the sheet just a little bit more. The head seems like, it doesn't seem as long as this one. It seems a little bit more compact, a little bit more wider, a little more rounder as well. And I think the paint is nicer too. Obviously, if you are collecting these, then you're probably going to be collecting all the Michael Myers. I think there was also as one that with the railing. Would like to get my hands also on that one. And of course, there was the young Michael Myers just after he exited out the Myers home with, of course, wearing the clown costume. That's one that we're going to be looking at actually in an upcoming review, courtesy, again, the folks over at Royal Bobbles. This one isn't available necessarily on their site, but there are places, of course, that you can always get Royal Bobbles, like, for example, Amazon. Amazon's always a good place. If you are, though, a fan of the Michael Myers, of course, from the original 1978 Halloween, I just also want to put these guys back to back. Does it look like there's a little bit of a height difference? Maybe perhaps like this one's just a little bit higher. Yeah, if you are, though, a fan of the original 1978 film, a great-looking bobblehead, and one that doesn't really, again, occupy very much space at all. Being that, of course, it's made of resin, being that it is also hand-painted, there's definitely a more premium feel and look to these than you would get with a traditional plastic bobblehead. But I'm really impressed with what we're getting here from Royal Bobbles, and it doesn't have to be, again, a case that has to be out every Halloween only, and then you just store this guy back away. For me, at least, like, now seeing how good these look, for a long time I really had, like, the Bush Michael Myers. That doesn't sound too good. The Bush Michael Myers I had actually stored away, and I was really only bringing him out during Halloween. Now that seeing how good this guy looks, I actually would like to really have this one out all year round. The shape is making quite the form for himself, even though he's not doing much of a job of hiding behind the smaller sheet in front of him. While this Michael Myers does seem like it's sharing the same body as the one that's hiding behind the bush, one omitted observation is that this one doesn't also have a knife. The other one did, and while looking at the hands, it wouldn't really give you any indication that this one should have really been holding an accessory. It just has like he has a relaxed hand that's basically parallel to his body. The other Michael Myers had that, so it looked like they just basically molded a knife around the existing relaxed hand on the other release, but it still worked fine for that bobblehead. This one also has, as you can probably also see, a very much wider base than the original release also. It has a little bit more of a greener grass. I guess the Strodes care a little bit more about their yards than the person that has that long bush. Funny, though, enough that bush has become just as memorable as the 78 film. Tourists and fans of the original film would go back to that same bush. That's one trip I would certainly like to make, go back to the original shooting locations of the 1978 film and be one of those people that stand alongside the Michael Myers bush. But what do you guys, though, think of this one? Let me know down below in the comment section. While there are things that are similar, there is some different shapes, so to speak, that have been definitely done to the masks. The mask on this one isn't as long, and it doesn't have as many highlights. I feel like the colors are kept a little bit more neutral to the lighter gray, whereas the other one may have had maybe a little more accented colors maybe added. Maybe it could also just be my own eyes playing tricks on me. But it looked like the other Michael Myers behind the bush did have some color variations to his mask, where this one keeps the colors kind of more neutral. The eyes obviously are one thing, like with the original release, that you can see that even though the eyes are sculpted in there, they're high enough in the sockets of the mask that from a distance, they're a little harder to spot. Exactly the way that Michael Myers should be. Some people don't really like to see their Michael Myers with eyes, even though really the H2O mask and the look of Myers from that movie is still one of my all-time favorites. Big thank you once again to the folks over at Royal Bobbles that did provide this sample of the Halloween 1978 Michael Myers hiding behind a sheet. Do we even really want to say he's hiding? He's clearly not hiding. I mean, Laurie can look out the window and clearly see that Myers is looking back up at her. If that was the case, and I'm sure any neighbor walking along the sidewalk would be able to see there's a shape standing in the front yard, what was even the point of him hiding next to the sheets? Anyways, though, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Obviously, we are wrapping up things right now for Michael Myers, not so hiding behind a sheet, but there will be more Royal Bobbles Halloween-themed bobbleheads coming your way during this spooktacular season. So, of course, making sure you're keeping your ghoulish peepers peeled to this channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.